a lot of people experience what are called phosphenes, right? And so there's sort of the geometric images, especially as the mushrooms sort of kicking in. You will also see cave drawings, and you'll see similar imagery on cave drawings and in basket weaving in the designs and whatnot. So it's also kind of ties in, I think, with the collective unconscious piece that Jung spoke of, that these phosphenes, this is part of a much grander reality. We experience those when we are in high transvisionary states. Well, Dr. Lefebvre discovered that when you are experiencing those phosphenes where you're in darkness and you see these light shapes and whatnot, guess what? It increases creativity, it increases memory, learning ability, and even psychic intuitive ability.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Psychedelic Conversations. We have Shonagh home in the house. Thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, thank you, Susan. I'm really happy to be here.
Likewise, it's such a pleasure to get to know you in this interview and also learn about your work, and truly honored to have your crafting this time to share your wisdom generously, because I'm really looking forward to the heritage, which we'll go into that. But before we start, can we just sort of give a little bit of a context about your background, where I will just say a few lines of your bio, and then we can begin with what brings you to this work, and you can tell us a little bit more in depth of your background and what you do, so that our listeners can connect with you, if that's okay. So you're a teacher, counselor, author, and poet of Celtic heritage. You follow the wisdom of ancients, inspired by the Drow.
Bandri.
Okay.
Bandri.
Oh, okay. And Philly. Gaelic for a Celtic medicine woman, seer-poet. So this is so interesting and fascinating to me. So I've been looking a lot at the Celtic traditions because I'm in the UK. So you can imagine I have come across so many times through meeting people and also coming across algorithmically, just kind of stumbling upon some of the traditions and also the land that we live in, right? So I'd be so interested to dive deep into that conversation a little bit with you. And you also an author of the book, Poetic Whispers. So I'm really interested in talking about the book as well. And lastly, I wanted to say that you're on Substack, which is now becoming my favorite blogging site. So it's really good that you have your. Do you share your journeys? Do you write about the poems and the insights?
Yes. With my Substack, I actually have a podcast called The Mushrooms Apprentice. And I recently put myself on Substack maybe 3 months ago. So all the episodes from The Mushrooms Apprentice are on Substack. I do 2 episodes a month. And then I also do 2 pieces of writing a month as well. So that's all there. And it's on a number of things. Like as The Mushrooms Apprentice, it's all things mushroom, but it's also alternative healing and traditional foods, traditions in general. I mean, all manner of explorations, which I feel like as an apprentice, I must do, and I do with
I
great.
think sorry to cut you there. I think it's inevitable, Shonagh. I think once you take this path, or the path calls you, one of my guests said that. I found that really interesting, and it's beautiful. I think it's inevitable, right, to just kind of be doing so many creative, let's say, outlets that we end up finding ourselves in.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I feel like I have apprenticed myself to the mushroom teachers, and I'm in my 13th year now, and it's changed my brain. Like I've been very psychic since I was a child. I am clairsentient, which is the feeling, and claircognizant, where I get the knowing. But I have found that with the mushroom, it has increased my psychic intuitive ability. And I just know it does over time for people. It's not necessarily immediate because it's not instant coffee, but over a period of time, I mean, I have definitely noticed a difference. And yeah.
Yeah, it's a really great insight you shared here. What do you think is happening when people change? People change. I'm fully aware that also we have a now new paper, scientific paper, that even with one dosing of mushrooms changes your brain literally. So this is also inevitable. I guess. Outcome of working with the medicines. What are your thoughts on the changing in that way?
Well, I think it actually has to do with, okay, you have the visions that you experienced, and a lot of people experience what are called phosphenes, right? And so there's sort of the geometric images, or very mandala like, especially as the mushrooms sort of kicking in. Well, I read about this recently. There was a French physician named Dr. Lefebvre, and he was born in 1916, and he did sort of the traditional physician thing. And then he worked with this teacher who was doing a laying on of hands, and he was doing these exercises to kind of open the mind. And I think then it was, but he kind of had a falling out with that person. And then later, he had an experience with phosphenes, which of course we know you will also see cave drawings, and you'll see similar imagery on cave drawings and in basket weaving in the designs and whatnot. So it's also kind of ties in, I think, with the collective unconscious piece that Jung spoke of, that these phosphenes, this is part of a much grander reality. And we experience those when we are in high transvisionary states. Well, Dr. Lefebvre did very in-depth study on this and discovered that when you are experiencing those phosphenes, where it's you're in darkness, or this will induce it, being in like pitch black, and then it's like the light comes to the eyes and you see these light shapes and whatnot. Well, guess what? It increases creativity, it increases memory, learning ability, and even psychic intuitive ability. So, what I think is the effects of these psychedelics turn that on through the ingestion of that. And so you're turning on the brain, as it were, and then it's making all these different connections and developing neuroplasticity. And so it just makes sense. And it ties in with Lefebvre's studies. And he's dead now, but there's a website, I think it's Phosphenismus. And so I'll give you that information. So if you want to put that in the show notes, it's fascinating. And he wrote a book on this. And if you go on the website, there's actually a number of practices you can do to induce this as well. And it's from darkness, also electrical stimulation will create it, and then also like a swaying back and forth. So these indigenous practices that would turn this on and then create these abilities in people.
Amazing. It's the universal wisdom is already known, right? For historically, we've somehow discovered this in different methods and practices. It's fascinating. Could you please share about your background? What brings you to this work? And maybe you can walk us through, how did you meet the mushrooms, and what you do specifically now in terms of helping people? What kind of spaces do you create, and what is happening at the moment in the psychedelic space? So we can all go into that, but I really want to hear your background story.
Of course. Okay. So I will just say, all right, so I had this psychic ability as a child through a teenager, and then kind of got drawn into kind of the matrix world for however long, but always felt like an outlier, and basically never fit into a peg. Well, at 40, my marriage to the father of my girls fell apart, and I had what I call the midlife face slap. And so to where all of a sudden I was just questioning absolutely everything. And that opened the door into this deeper study of my inner workings, of metaphysics. And I found my way to the man who became my teacher for this lifetime, Dr. Brew Joy, who was a Johns Hopkins trained MD, walked away from an illustrious career as a physician to teach. And he was very Jungian. And so he was my introduction to Carl Jung, who I absolutely fell in love with. I read everything I could. And then I also fell in love with Marie-Louise von Franz, who was a student who became a phenomenal psychoanalyst, and also Edward Edinger. And I encourage anyone who's interested in this kind of thing to go on YouTube and listen to some of his lectures. I mean, he was just a brilliant man and he wrote some superb books. So that just opened this whole world for me. And then I worked with other teachers. I found a wonderful shaman teacher, Miguel Angel Vergara in the Yucatan, worked with him for a few years. And I'd never done psychedelics. I don't drink alcohol. I don't smoke pot, whatever. And by the age 47, I was feeling a call and I was hearing about ayahuasca. And so I had an experience. My first experience with ayahuasca was with an all women's ayahuasca circle. And she kicked my behind and it was a living hell. uh, I have great respect for that teacher. And anyway, and I tried it a few more times, but I was like, this isn't my medicine. And at that time, the mushroom, you were saying this other person said the path calls you. I was nodding my head like it sure does. So that mushroom was calling me. And I happened to have a good friend. We were both in this 2-year deep shamanic study with just a fantastic teacher. And there was a small group of us. And we would meet 4 times a year. And so I trusted him implicitly. And I went up to, this took place in the Seattle area in the Pacific Northwest. And so I went up into the rainforest with him and had my first mushroom experience at the age of 48. And it was at night. And we were listening to a lot of Terence McKenna. So we did we were outside a moss forest, which was amazing, but lying down, eyes closed in silent darkness, as Terence advocated. And I had the most extraordinary, I had no idea what to expect. I had absolutely no idea. And the earth spoke to me and I experienced a healing on a level I just was not expecting. I just had no idea. So when I got out of that, I said, my God, this is a portal. This is a portal. It's a living master intelligence. And those doors just opened. And it was all I could think of. I also saw Pan. I mean, it was incredible. And then when I got home, I had a little fire ceremony with a group of women. And one of the women asked, hey, is it okay if I take some pictures? And I said, sure. And then that night she sent me the photos and I picked a few and I sent them to my friend, my mushroom friend. And he wrote back. And one of the pictures I sent was the fire that we created. And he said, hey, I dig that face in the fire. And I was like, what face in the fire? Like it totally went over my head. And I went to look back at it and it was Pan. It was a profile of Pan's face in the fire, an eye where an eye should be, a nose, lips, a goatee, and a little horn. Just it's a portal, all right. And something opened, and that world, which our ancestors knew very well, opened to me. And then I wanted to go back and have another experience. And I didn't plan this, but I ended up doing 12 months in a row of these drygram experiences. The first 6 months were out in the rainforest, and then they'd be indoors because it got very cold. But it was profound. And during that time, what happened was I started channeling. Spirits were coming in and speaking through me. And a couple of years into my work with the mushroom, then they started speaking in perfect rhyme. And so I have, of course, when that started happening, I would just bring a digital recorder whenever I would go into the mushroom realms, hit on, just put it beside me. And then whatever came through, came through. And then I would transcribe it the next day. So I have years of these messages. And then later discovered this is something called the Mantic arts. And it's very, very old, where initiates would, or adepts would go into an expanded state of a high trance state. And they would go in to consult with the gods or the nature spirits. Every culture had their people who would do that. and they would often speak poetically. And I also discovered that the original poets were the shamans, that the two went hand in hand. And so it was one of the things that gave me chills and also made me realize that I'm not a weirdo. As strange as this seems for the times that we're in, it's very old, but we're very old. We're just ancient, and there's ancestral memory within us, in our DNA. And so I guess, if you track my line far enough, I'm sure you'd find some wild ones in there who, maybe there's a lineage there back to the seer-poets of old Ireland. So anyway, and so that's that piece. And so I'm also a writer. And I did write a book that chronicles my first year of mushroom journeys and the demise of my marriage because I love to research. I'm an autodidact, I'm self taught. And so I was reading every book I could find on mushrooms because I was like, oh my God, what is this? And they were mostly by men and they were great books. But I'm like, where are the women? Where are the women? This was like 13 years ago. And I read Black Smoke by Margaret DeWeese. That was a fantastic book. And that was her experience. This was an ayahuasca book. It was superb. So I just started writing about my experiences. And so that ended up being my book called Love and Spirit Medicine. So that's out there. And then I published a book this year called Poetic Whispers from the Cauldron of the Other World. And so that book explores the gorgeous fairy lore of the Celts and the training of the seer poets of old Ireland, like really going into my own, I'm Irish Scottish lineage. And then also there's these poetic transmissions throughout the book. And then there's personal essays. And it's a magical book. It's definitely encoded. And yeah, it's a beautiful offering. So I'm very, very proud of that. And then I have for the past 9 years been hosting one-on-one retreats. And I just speak openly now because it just could be hearsay, whatever, because I just recently closed my doors on this, just sort of retired myself. But I was doing retreats in my home. And so with just one person, I don't like groups. And so they would have an expanded state experience and it'd be real deep, intimate work. And I would cook for them. And again, as strange as that might sound, it's also very traditional because the medicine women and medicine men back in the day didn't have offices or retreat centers. You went to their home and they'd usually hand you a broom, which I don't do, but you would learn and study and take medicine, whatever it was. So in any case, that's what I was offering. And it was my heart's work. And it's the most meaningful work I've ever done in my life. And now I am focusing on readings and sessions. And I'm going to be putting together a very in-depth school. So that's a long-term, big project launch for the future.
Amazing. Thank you so much. You answered all of my questions. Amazing.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Now we have a good understanding of your lineage background and what you do and your experience. What comes to my mind is every now and then I sit down with a guest where they have chosen the alternative path or the alternative path would call them. And I want to actually say the original path because another teacher and an interview guest that I had here, Jonathan, he always says things like, we even though we think we're from West and we come from these modern lives, we all come from a lineage. There's always this indigenous within us, in our DNA level, cellular level, bones, recently I was hearing about these studies where they are studying the bones now, and they found that maybe most of the information and the lineage data is in our bones, which makes sense to me. And all that to say is it's so interesting. When I say alternative path like yours, meaning the spiritual, the unconventional, than the usual mainstream psychedelic
Yeah.
trends that we are now swimming in, medicalized and therapeutic and psychotherapeutic and also symptom management or treating symptoms. This is a very it's grounded. It's very it's existential. I feel like saying it's an existential path of, I guess, discovery, discovering and unpacking our origins. Maybe.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? On that?
Very much so. I was also thinking too, it's a path of relationship. I had one of the first interviews I did, the interviewer had read Love and Spirit Medicine. He said, I too have read a lot of these psychedelic books. And he said, a number of them are very sort of cerebral. He said, your book is really all about relationship. And I said, you know what? At the end of the day, life is about relationship. And working with these visionary offerings of nature brings you into relationship with nature herself, with the spirit realm, with your own mystery. And then it affects your relationship with people in this realm in which we find ourselves. You come out of that experience, you're changed, and things shift. And yeah, I am very, I look I joke that I kind of look like Doris Day. In fact, my oldest friend swears to God that I'm the love child of Terence McKenna and Martha Stewart. And so I sort of have that kind of dichotomy, but I'm not conventional at the same time. I am, I don't know, I think it's from my childhood. Like I combed my garden for fairies as a child. Like I knew I could feel these other beings. I knew they were there. I didn't have the clairvoyance to see them. And I never lost that. And I have lived in 3 different houses with ghosts. The last one, fortunately, it wasn't there when I moved in, and it only stayed for a couple days till I got it to leave. But it was a what do you call them? They're fiercer than a ghost. They made a movie with the name. Oh gosh. Anyway, they make a big deal. They're there, and a poltergeist. So, and that's weird. It's like, who has that? Anyway, 3 different times. So I have a natural proclivity, and this is the thing I know that ancient people did as well, because they didn't have the hang-ups or the biases that we have in this sort of, I don't even think of it as Western culture. Like, yes, it's Western, but it's also commercialized. And it's an overlay of this commercial mindset, and it's very superficial. But again, we're way deeper than that, all of us. And so our ancestors, and even Carl Jung, he grew up in a household. This was like a nothing burger to those people. Like, yeah, they knew ghosts or, spirits. It was very natural. In other words, part of life. And so yeah, so I've been a bit of an oddball, but I don't know, I really found my way with, first of all, the shamanic study I was doing, but then when that mushroom showed up, it just took me into a really powerful, profound place, and it's changed my life utterly. And even the work I've been doing, I've worked with over 300 people in these 9 years, men and women, 18 to 84 at this point. And I have had the grace to attract some of the most wonderful people, like truly, I never had a bad egg come. I had couple of, difficult experiences, but I always knew everyone who came, I have karma with this person. I have karma. So let's go there and see what we've come together to experience. Um, and it's just been absolutely profound. So I bow deeply to the spirits of that mushroom. And that's a whole conversation in terms of like, well, who are you speaking to and what spirits exactly?
Yeah.
But it's a portal. So there's, and of course there's quite an association with the fairy and the elfin and these mushrooms. And not just, of course, the psilocybin, but then also the Amanita muscaria, which I've never worked with. I'm not interested in that, just for myself.
Yeah. This is really interesting as well, Shonagh. I think, I guess, like you said, you weren't really connected so much with ayahuasca, and then you kind of, the mushrooms called you. Um, Interestingly, I had the resistance to Amanita as well for a long time. And then, as you know, it's like, it's everywhere. And interestingly, I was gifted a small piece of it, tiny. a little piece of amanita, all dried, and I think it was origin. I can't remember which European country, probably. And I resisted because you can make a tea, as you know, like a very low dose. Anyway, so I was resisting, and then one day somehow I opened it, and I was kind of. It's almost like there was this energetic pull. So I opened it, and I was looking at this, and then I was thinking, wow, interesting, how the colors, and it's very different, distinct, very distinct in the way that it presents the fruiting body. And anyway, that night I had the most profound dream,
Mm.
and it reminded me of, they are associating Amanita muscaria with dreaming, I believe. So there is that, and I'm probably we can trace it to the Celtic heritage. I'm not sure if you're aware. Like, a lot of people talk about this being in the UK land, there's abundance of them, right? Growing in the nature. And yeah, and that was kind of like validating for me that maybe people knew that this is common experience, that people dream when they. I was in its field. I guess not that I ingested it, but the fact that I was in its field, if affected me that way. I was able to see that or feel that, at least.
Absolutely, no question. No question. And in terms of the ancient people, I mean, goodness, they had no television. They had none of the ridiculous diversions that we have. They knew nature. They knew what was growing around them. They knew what was medicinal, what was just good for every day. And I guarantee you, they knew what was poisonous, and they knew what would give you visions. A number of them did anyway. And that mushroom is too unusual not to be noticed and to have been experimented with. And it's thought that there were rituals from the Aryan peoples that made their way also to the Celtic lands that involved that mushroom. And I'm certain that there were. And a lot of this, of course, had to go underground. And when Christianity came, and there was a lot of repression with those kind of, with ritual and a lot of those traditions, they had to go underground. But I don't doubt for 1 minute. And the same with psilocybin; it grows all over there as well.
Totally. I mean, talk about Manita. It's so distinct, like you said. Surely they will be interested in, and surely people are, open enough to try them, right? So it's
Yeah,
a no-brainer.
no, and they were far more sophisticated than we realize. All you have to do is look at the architecture, look at the art. My God, I mean, they seemed illuminated in many ways when you see the way uh, things were expressed. And among the Celts also, to get a dagger or a spear, that would be created in the forge, and the result would be something that we would have in the Smithsonian today. The level of artistry was just exquisite. So these people were very sophisticated.
Yeah, absolutely. What comes to my mind as you were talking about uh, your background as a child and also your lineage, I was thinking, I wonder, when you had your first mushroom experience, I wonder if your background and you as the person, it kind of, that's the center in the center of the outcome. For example, the reason I'm asking this, would you say that where you were in your level of consciousness and your background and everything that made you who you are informed the experience in a way? Because I'm just thinking, I do acknowledge that we all have the potential and we are infinite potentials. But I'm thinking, if somebody was to grow up in a very sort of sterile environment without any of these, knowledge, I wonder what would their first experience would be. Do you have any idea?
That's the thing is we're all wired very differently, and all you have to do is study a little astrology and then look at one person's chart and another person's chart and go, oh my God. Oh my God. Like, there's so much to us. And you see how unique each and every one of us is. And then, yes, we have our conditioning, how we were raised, all of those influences. And also, whatever the kind of the life path. I know we come in because I study a system and it's playing cards, but it's actually ancient, ancient old. And it was done on tablets before. Those 52 cards are numbered. So it's an oracular calendar is what that card deck is. And so we each come in with, you could call it karma or a specific path we're meant to walk. And I think also, look, there are people who have dormant abilities that because of maybe a more sort of superficial or very cerebral, maybe they're raised in a family that, full of academics or doctor, whatever it is, right? And you just don't go there. But then that person could have a mushroom journey or an ayahuasca journey, and it could just kind of turn on those abilities. And that's what it took. And then all of a sudden that person is in touch in a way that they never have been before. And then you have other people who I just think this is like anything, again, we're so different. Some of us have this ability and we can kind of go there, and others not so much. But then there are other areas, you know, that they are excel at, right? So it really depends. And this
Yeah.
is what I love about it, because it's not public school and it's not instant coffee. It's we, each and of every one of us is a living mystery. And this realm is a living mystery. And so then you bring in a catalyst like psilocybin. We'll just have to see. We can't predict what's going to happen, but something is going to happen for sure.
Yeah, totally. I'm with you. And you're right. Sometimes people come from these backgrounds where have no idea of any of the ancient traditions or the spirituality, very sort of logical and, uh, practical. So, and they can have an opening. And I do know some of those people, and then they struggle because their environment no longer supports them. So they have to leave and move to another country or at least get some help. And sometimes getting that help doesn't go down well, and they end up being in a much worse places because there is no support of the environment. So, not to bring any negativity to the conversation, it's also, I'm also aware, for example, there was another conversation. So I'm very curious about these different approaches and different, because there's billions of us on this planet. And I think, like you said, we all come from this unique makeup that psychedelics can reveal anything, any given time that we cannot be sure. So there was this conversation where they were thinking about maybe raising a child very sterilized so that this child is not exposed to any religion, traditions, so they can raise this child super neutral
Okay.
and then see what happens. Because only because, some of the psychedelic experiences that people, they did another study where they gave it to religious people, different background, different religions, and their experiences somewhat, or at least their upbringing somewhat informed their experiences.
Mhm.
So they're kind of using that kind of language to translate or interpret their experiences. So that was kind of the idea, wondering if somebody was raised very neutral, not exposed to any of this, what kind of experience would they have? So that was the curiosity behind it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, coming back to your background, so you seem to be someone who's very much in touch with the, unseen, the invisible world that we say in our language. I remember James Fadiman said once that there are only not many, quite rare people who could actually journey on their own and be super in the journey and be able to, not in control, but safe. So they can go out there, take the medicine, journey, and come back with the gold.
That's all I do. Yeah, 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 I mean, I wanna be by myself. I
Mhm,
don't like the group thing. Um, when I go in, I'm all alone. And,
mhm.
the first few years, I would always have someone with me because it was the first few years. But these last few years, I don't know, 6 years or so, I go in once or twice a year because with my retreats, I was very busy, so I couldn't go in much more than that. but always alone. And I know how to take care of myself and prepare, and I have soup for myself for after. I mean, I know what to do. And always a dear friend will know I'm journeying if I need to call, which I never need to. Um, yeah. And I go in again, turn on the recorder, and then in they come, and I'm going in. I want to sit with what I call mama, this beautiful earth queen, and the fairy, the she is the Irish word for fairy, and they are not Tinkerbells. And this is a race of, they're tall and they're shimmering and they're deeply wise, and you don't mess with these they're very profound and very kind and very fair. But they can do this, but with a wink and a smile. They're, oh God, they're beautiful. And it's so deeply humbling to go in and have that experience. And they've made me, they've just made me a better woman over the years. I'm as flawed as the next person, probably more so. And these mushrooms have helped me greatly, greatly. And again, it's like when you were saying before, not to be negative. I think really you're being realistic, because this is realistic. I mean, psychedelics are not for everyone. And some people, that's a very dangerous road to take for them for whatever reasons, mentally, whatever trauma, whatever is going on. For the most part, I think they're very safe, and they've helped a tremendous amount of people, and they're not for everyone. But again, there's so many other avenues, right? There's so many paths people can take. I'm
Yeah,
grateful this has been mine, though, my goodness.
absolutely. I have two things that come to my mind that I would like to ask, if that's okay.
Yeah.
One of them is your group work. What are the insights that you have around not wanting to be in a group?
All right. Well, with the ayahuasca, of course, that is with a group. First of all, for the mushroom, for myself personally, because I channel, I don't want to be a disruption to a group. I also don't want to be in a group in a deep experience and have someone be maybe wailing over here or shouting over whatever. Also, I do think about the idea that, not it's an idea, it's true. When you're on that medicine, you're wide open. Your field, you're wide open. If you're with a group of people and someone maybe has a few, I don't know, entity, whatever it is, like, and this is common in the ayahuasca. And of course, those ayahuasca shamans, the good ones, the real ones, part of their job is they're professionally trained over many years to monitor the group, and they can see or feel those spirits and make darn sure that people are safe psychically as well as physically. And so I just feel I want to do my medicine alone. It's a very deeply personal experience for me. And yeah, and also I just think, I don't know, I've been kind of a hermit all these years as well. I just prefer that intimacy. Now, at the same time, kind of karmically, I have to bring myself out there, especially now, which is why I'm like, all right, I will work with this piece on a school and develop that. And I speak publicly, but I don't know. I love the intimacy of one-on-one. I just cherish it.
Mm, I understand and I hear you. I guess if you have that level of capacity for journeying on your own and having that capacity to, you know, bring the gold back. And, I think we all have different approaches to the medicine. So I don't, I have, of course, understand that. Um, I'm guessing with the group work, for example, you talked about relational aspect of everything, like the spiritual, uh, you know, I think the spiritual path, it is about the relational path, right? So I'm thinking maybe, let's say, can we say, if some group of people who come together and they feel so disconnected and they don't come from that kind of understanding or capacity or experience of life where they were able to connect and open up to other people. Sometimes I find that groups can really crack people open to,
No question.
right? So,
I agree. Absolutely.
but I
Yeah,
guess it's just, finding what's best for the individual.
that's
That's
exactly
the
right.
approach, right?
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
And you talk about, so I want to come back to your experience. You talk about the is it the
Oh,
arts?
the Mantic
Mantic
art.
arts. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
I have never heard of it, and I would like to know a bit more.
Okay. Caitlin and John Matthews write about this, and they are from the UK, and they have written prolifically. They also speak and read Gaelic, and they can translate. And so, oh my goodness, they have written gorgeous, amazing books on the mythology of the Celts, on the training of the seer-poets, on so much the Arthurian legends. So anything you can read by Caitlin and or John Matthews, absolutely do so. And so the Mantic arts, this is the ability to go into these expanded states. And for instance, we have the seer poets of old Ireland, and this training, they go way, way, way back. And you had the Druids. Everyone has heard of the Druids. Well, we also had the seer poets were known as the File, Fili. I used to pronounce it Fili, but I believe it's File. And they are seer poets. So there's the bards, those were the poets. But the File, that was a rank above even the bards because they could see. And they had a very specific training, and they trained for 12 years. And they trained in darkness. They trained in these stone houses, and they would be given the lessons at dusk and or no, no, rather at dawn. And so before the sun rose, they would go into these houses of darkness, and they would begin this work after Samhain. So after what we think of as Halloween, that time of the year, the harvest is done, all that work is done. And so they would lie down, and they would have a stone they'd put over their belly, and it would be just heavy enough so that they wouldn't fall asleep. And then they would take their plaids and they'd put them over or their cloak over their eyes. And so they would be in that darkness, and then they were to work out whatever the assignment was. And this was later known as going under the cloak. And of course, back to Dr. Lefebvre, what was happening in that darkness? We know people experience phosphenes. Now, these seer poets, their training, they had to memorize. Nothing was written down. The equivalent of volumes of books on sagas and poetry and stories. And I mean, it just extraordinary amount of information that they could contain. Well, the last third of their training, or the last maybe 3 or 4 years, they were taught what is known as the three illuminations. And so this was the magical training for them. And so uh, there was imbas verona, which is it's like the kindling of knowledge. And so they were kindling this knowledge. And by the way, their guiding light was Brigid, the goddess Brigid. And so um, it was like they were in the womb of Brigid, and then they were going to birth the poetry forth. And another of the three illuminations was Ten Leda. I think it was not, the pronunciation is not accurate, but that is where they would go into a trance state with a question or a query or something. Once they were graduated, their rank was so high they were above the law. So they would be called to decide who should be king. So they would use the ten leda, where they would go into darkness and they would eat the meat of, it was either a dog or a pig, I think, or a cat or a pig, and and they would chew on that. And it means something like chewing on the pith of the fruit. But so you're weaving down deeply, like a fractal almost, into to where you would find the correct answer, and then they would come forth and give that information. And the other one was Dochenev, and that is psychometry. So they would use the whirls of their fingers and they would touch something and they would get a full download of information. So they could touch like there was a story of a ship that sank and this dog's skull had washed up on shore months later. And so the file, picked up the skull and then he knew who it belonged to and he knew, who was on the ship and whatnot. And had all that information. And they would also have these staffs, like the poet staff. And if two poets met, they could touch staffs and they would receive all the information about who that person was. And so I really think, especially studying a little bit of Dr. Lefebvre and the phosphines, that this was a huge part. Now, it's also thought, perhaps, and I do wonder, I would not be surprised if mushrooms were part of their training, if maybe that wasn't really the flesh of an animal, but maybe it was amanita or psilocybin. Take a little bit of that as well. It's very possible. But because they trained in darkness and because those phosphines open up so much, I think there's a lot more area for study and discovery there. But anyway, and these people were just master poets. I mean, you want to talk about, oh my goodness. And oh gosh, even throughout into the 16th, 17th century, until the genocide of the potato famine, which was deliberate, and then that wiped out the schools. And I mean, it really did so much damage we almost lost the Irish entirely with that. But their way with words is just extraordinary. These poets, it's jaw-dropping. And back then the magical power that they had was quite something. I really what I've read, I'm so inspired, and I just wish, oh my God, I would give anything to have been able to have that kind of training. And so what's happened to me with the mushroom, with the poetry, I mean, it just happens spontaneously. So I don't know. I wonder, did I have an ancestor long, long, long ago? Maybe they're singing a little bit through me. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like the little soft echo of, a little tiny, like when you blow on a dandelion, one of those seeds, the echo of that. I don't know. But it just so moves me,
Yeah.
to know that we as humans were in touch with that. And it's not just the Irish, all over the world, right? The cultures had their magic and it
Abs-
never went away. Our minds just got steered away.
yeah, absolutely. There are so many traditions out there that practice similar teachings. I'm guessing it's the opening of the universal wisdom that we uncover. It touches everyone in, so the frequency of it could be same, but we can interpret it from a different language,
Mhm,
geographically where we are, and you know the lifestyle that we have and upbringing.
mhm.
I find it fascinating. I mean, I'm in the UK, as I said, and um, I visited Stonehenge, and it's fascinating, the energy and everything around that land. It's just fascinating. I know a lot of people come there to see history of, but what I find is that there's something about the Irish heritage, like the community. There's something there for sure that is unconventional, and it's very special. I've always
Yeah.
had the best encounters with people who have that kind of from the lineage, always. And there is this they're very neutral, the ones that I encountered anyway. Very neutral, very accepting, very open-minded,
Yeah.
and they're very direct, very honest. So that's kind of my experience.
Yes. Yes. And they can be anyway, very, very warm and kind and welcoming. Yeah. I loved Ireland. And I love Scotland. Yeah, I'm absolutely in love with Scotland. And Callanish in Scotland, that's a stone circle that I highly recommend. Go over on the Isle of Lewis. That whole area is just wondrous. It's just
Yeah,
beautiful. Yeah.
it's fascinating. So can you maybe talk to us a little bit about the poems, the rhymes that you are kind of downloading? You said that So you have this practice where you kind of commune with the medicine, and then the channel opens where you can record what's coming. Is that what
Mm,
you do?
yes, yes, yes,
That's
yes.
so fascinating. Tell us a little bit about this experience.
Sure. It happens every time I go into the medicine. So I lie down, eyes closed. I don't want any music. I don't need a soundtrack. I want that silence. And and then the medicine starts to kick in about 20 minutes or so. And then I feel an energy from my lower back, and it goes up, 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 and my back arches, and then my hands go into spontaneous mudras. And I think that's even interesting. So this is what because they talk to me, they explain these things that we are mostly water. We're in a body. This is a vessel, and a vessel holds fluid. And so we're mostly water. And they said our spirit is electric. And what does water carry? It carries charge. And then they said, when we come in to you, we are like another electrical charge in the body. So I always have to drink a lot of water when I'm on that mushroom. And if I don't, I am fried afterwards because it's all this electrical energy. And I think that's the same for just about anyone who works with a mushroom, because you've ingested that and you've got this other spirit imbued within you and informing you whatever the experience is. And so it's very important to hydrate. And so anyway, then these strange sounds come out of my mouth that I've never been able to quite duplicate, not that I would even want to. um, and But they explain also that it's almost like they play with words. They say something like every rock star needs a warm-up band. And so when I think of band, I think of like electricity, like when you're speaking of radio waves and whatnot. So it's like a frequency that's sort of almost warming up the body, if you will, or bringing the body into a certain resonance field. And then I just start speaking, and it's in rhyme, and I've got that recorded there. I don't worry about it. It's on. And 3 or 4 hours later, usually around 4 hours later, I come out of it. And of course, it's a journey, as many people know. You sort of fall into kind of that sleep at times, right? And then you come back. I always wonder where you go when you're in that deep, deep, deep state, and sort of rise back. And yeah, and that's what it's like. And then they're just so kind. I've never known a kindness like that. And then I come out of it, and yeah, and then I take care of myself. I always have bone broth for myself as, I like a restorative, and candles lit. I go in during the day. I'm not a night person, so I'll go in around 1, maybe 2 at the latest. And then I'm out or sort of finished around 8 or so, 7 or 8, something like that. And and then it's lovely because I love to light the candles, and it's just very soft and it's very womb-like. And then I don't have anything to do, obviously, the next day or the day after. Sometimes it takes me 2 days to recover. It's a lot, like, there's no way mushrooms can be addictive, right? Like, I'm always like, when I go in, I'm like, "Oh god, here we go." Oof, because it's hard on your nervous system. So you also have to take really good care of your body,
Yeah,
which I always have. When I started doing this, I realized, "Oh my god, I've been training for this my whole life." Like, I realized there's a reason why I've been so athletic and taken such good care of my body, because by God, I need it now. This is intense.
right.
Yes. So,
That's
yeah.
And do you have any example of what kind of uh, channeling? Is that the right way, or is that
Uh, yeah, yeah,
messages?
yeah,
Messages?
yeah, and it's or mediumship. Again, we have so many, I don't know, there's so many examples of that, and a lot of them are sort of whatever. In any case, which also makes me a little bit like, okay, here we go. But I'll tell you what ended up happening. I would I would read some of these transmissions to retreat clients and close friends, and their response was always, they were always so touched. And I had different people say, you've got to put a book together. Like, you've got to put these together, and you've got to read them aloud. And so, all right, so I'll just share. This is this came through in January of 2022. I like to go in on New Year's Day because I have two daughters in their 20s. And so they come for Christmas. We have a great time. And then they go do their thing for New Year's. I could care less. So New Year's Day is a day that I really like to go in. I'm all alone and it's quiet and it's perfect. So I call this Council of the Wise Ones. And at the start of this journey, I saw myself at a train station and it was just mist everywhere, heavy, heavy mist. And I was like waiting for the train. I'm like, is this train ever going to come? And it wasn't until after the journey, this always happens to me, when I should have known this, but I read that this is one of the things with the Sidhe, the Irish fairy, is they often come through the mist. So the train finally came. Um, and I will say also, I have been plagued through my life with chronic worry and at times crippling self-doubt, and some would call that anxiety. I've never labeled it, but the mushrooms have helped me tremendously. But it doesn't mean that I still don't go into that. And so the journey opened up with them saying to me, daughter, to yourself be kind. We see worry in your mind. We see fretting and regret. That, dear, is a sticky net. You know you cannot change the past. To sail ships takes experience vast, accomplishments and mistakes too. All that lives inside of you. That is quite the cauldron's brew. It does inform and also stews. Daughter, you must pick and choose carefully what you hold and lose. Ride that wave you see so clearly. We will hold it for you dearly. You will walk this year with grace. With every step you'll see her face. Daughter, look around you now. It's hard to imagine how, but this weaving just wove itself. It is the magic of the elf, magic they don't want you to see, and so they've changed the scenery. But we are always just below, and what we carry so few know. To certain ones we do bestow the knowledge of how good seeds grow. A gentle journey today's ride will hold you fast while we are inside. We are around you and below. Just call to us and we'll bestow the ways in which to stay in flow and ensure that awareness grows. We'll help you get out of their system. We'll say it's about to fall. You are finding the true wisdom. It is clear you've heard the call. Forces strong will see you through. We'll help you with all that you do. This is how much we love you. You still cannot believe it's true. That's quite the spell they've cast on you. It will unbind. 'Twill do so soon. That is why at this dark moon, we come in with great stealth to ensure you regain health. For this next passage you won't miss, and you will seal it with a kiss. We will share with you this time, so much we'll tell you through this rhyme. The wise old ones who run this place know well when it's time to face the music, so your ship you'll clean, ready set for the next scene upon this great stage they call Earth. For this new scene's about a birth the dark old wizards tried to quell by poisoning the ancient well. But daughter, no, we studied longer. In that college we grew stronger. We've the antidote for that. 'Twill cause them all to more than scat. And so, this is their last card, and they are working very hard. The human race they wish to snuff, but their efforts aren't enough. They underestimate the ancient college, the beauty place of sacred knowledge. They thought they could just drop out, and that somehow gives them clout. And they have knowledge, yes, it's true, but what they have cannot construe the living world of truth and light. All they do is create fright. And so this winter won't last long, and we've got you where you belong, and we are tending well your weave, a golden one that you'll conceive. And many hands will help you, dear, and what you spin will be quite clear. A tapestry, a weave so fine, the muse within is just divine. You came here to spin that one. We promise, dear, this will be fun, and many kindreds they will come and add their threads beneath the sun. This a birth they cannot quell. This one comes forth from the well that's guarded by the she, tended well by wise ones We've told you, daughter, it's the timing. Here we are again, we're rhyming. You won't have to wait that long before the earth bursts forth in song. The spring is an awakening, see? A metaphor we think will please. You will get the rhythm, dear, of those rhymes and ship you steer. We will get it through your head. That is why you are in bed, the only way we can reach you. And so we're here and we'll teach you. You must know, daughter, you are loved by friends below and too above. Dear, that is an old injury. You thought you were cast out to sea. All of it, dear, had to be, and now you're with the good folk we. We know that your heart is good. That's why we're in your neighborhood. Don't be so hard on yourself. We surround you, fay and elf, that old spell we wish to break, and witness you a new life make. So, daughter, you'll unweave this knot. We are here to help you spot the complication and resolve. We'll help you easily dissolve. This is your ship, and it's a beauty. Steer it well, that is your duty. And daughter, we ride with you now. We are with you at the bow, and you've a scope through which you see. You'll avert storms easily. You've called to you the old ones wise. We do not wear a disguise. We imbue when time is right. We know the weight of this fight. This is why the books of old ensured that the stories told would seed the minds and set the stage to bring rightly a new age, one that cannot be infected. We're immune, though they've directed all of their artillery. But it's too late, good seers see, and of a sudden minds are free. They tell you it can't be done. They're trying to quell the sun. They know well the time's begun, and the poison they have spun will be unbound by clever hands, true graduates, the shining band of wise and kindly kindreds dear. Don't think we don't know how to clear. This the lesson that they missed. They left early, class dismissed. We stayed longer, got the spell. We know how to transform hell into a wondrous place of beauty. We maintain that it's our duty. We will right what's torn asunder. We will heal what they have plundered. We're what you call cleanup crew, the experts that know what to do. You wonder why we talk to you, daughter, you doubt your own value. Hear us now. That spell must break. You will do all that it takes. Not easy, but you've got this one. You have good teachers. We're the ones, and we'll ensure you'll learn this lesson. For you, dear, school's still in session. Let us gently filter in threads to create a different spin. So, daughter, feed the ones with ears. Help them know that they can steer their vessels to a place that's calm, where they can find the healing balm. That balm is a different brew, not the kind that sorcerers blew. This one, dear, spelled with an L. This balm makes all of you well. It keeps
Wow.
going, but I'll stop there.
Wow. It feels like it can go on forever. Wow, profound. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you. Thank you for allowing to be part of this. I'm feeling there's a deep relationship here, teacher to student type.
Yes, yes, yeah, they are my teachers, very much so. Yeah.
I love that. And that's why you have the Mushrooms Apprentice podcast.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I'll be apprentice the rest of my days.
So aligned. Yeah, this is so profound. Thank you so much. Honestly, this is beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. Mhm.
Wow. I don't know if we should continue talking after this now. It doesn't make sense.
No, it definitely cast a kind of energy, a kind of frequency.
Right?
It's quite something.
It
And
just made all my questions like trivial and, and important. Yeah,
yeah.
beautiful teaching.
Oh,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. But I do want to say a couple more things.
Yes, please.
As we are coming to the end of our conversation, I feel like we haven't touched anything. I feel like we haven't even scratched the surface.
We'll
So,
just have to do this again soon.
so we just have to get you back on again, Shonagh,
Yeah.
if that's
Yeah.
okay. If
Oh,
if
I
you
love
if you wouldn't mind, we would love you to have you back for continued conversation because yeah, there's a lot here that we haven't even honored properly. So
yeah, that would be wonderful. Just wonderful.
thank you
Yeah.
so much. So before we let you go, I'd like to say, please share with us your projects, the mission. I know there's a school in progress, but that's kind of like a long-term project.
It is. Yeah.
What are
Yeah.
your current projects and what are your offerings at the moment?
Well, I've been doing counseling sessions, counseling mentoring for a number of years. So I continue to do that and will continue that. I'm also doing readings now. I've been working with cards for many years, and there's a particular system that I've been working with. And so I do readings just about every single day for people. And it's very, very profound because it's very old. And it's not kind of new age nonsense. There was a book written in 1893 by Olney Richmond, who was Grand Master of one of these secret orders, or not so secret, but it was called the Order of the Magi. And he brought forth the inner workings of the 52, what we think of as playing cards, but it's actually an oracular calendar system. And so it tells you your destiny through the date of birth, and there's cards associated with that, and it's so profound and so helpful. And I wish to God I'd known about this 25 years ago. It would have saved me a lot of headaches, because we're all going, there's a bajillion people with that same birthday, but everyone's going to play their hand, as it were, their own unique way. But y'all are going to have the same themes. And so when you have a heads up on that, can be very helpful and also very affirming when you hear aspects of your persona and you're like, oh my God, yes, that's exactly right. That is me. In other words, like, okay, there's nothing wrong with me. This is my wiring. Same with astrology. You realize, oh, these are sort of influences that I came in on in this lifetime. And I meant to have these experiences in this way. And then you can also look at a year ahead and you can get the themes of what's coming for that year. And every house of royalty, nobility around the world had their court astrologist or seer. And being a seer, and I am a seer could be very dangerous, because if they didn't like what you were seeing, they'd boil you alive. That's just one example of something that happened to a seer back in the day. But they wanted to know, all right, when is going to be the most auspicious time for this royal wedding, or for this war we're about to start, whatever it is, right? So, and I find that fascinating too, because you realize we're in a system. It's a great living mystery. It's a living system, and it is a master intelligence that has created this. And no, I do not believe it's a simulation. I don't buy into any of that nonsense. This is a living mystery, and something extraordinary and beyond words created this.
Yeah.
And here we are, and I get to meet you and have this conversation, and it's just, I'm always just in awe at what we are in. It's not always pretty, but here we are,
Yeah.
you know.
Truly. I love that. Thank you so much. Yeah, we're always co-creating. Always. I love this. So where can they find you if our listeners are listening and they enjoy what they heard?
My website is my name. It's shonaghome.com. And so they can go on the website and they can pay for a session, always contact me through the website, and also Substack. I have a Substack, so they can listen to my podcast. The first hour is free, the second is for paying subscribers, and then there's my writings as well. So
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much. We'll add everything in the show notes, including your. Are you on social media?
oh, yes, I am. Yeah, I'm on Instagram and Facebook. I took myself off in the middle of 2020 just because I was just like, ugh, I'm out of here. And I kind of went dark for 4 years, and I focused on my retreats. But because I published a book this year, I put myself back on Facebook and Instagram. I just have to remember to post on there, but you can find me on both of those.
Amazing. Okay, and congratulations on the book. We'll have the link there as well.
Thank you.
This has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much, and cannot wait to have you back very soon.
Thank you, Susan. I'm so happy to have met you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the next time.
Likewise. Thank you everyone for joining us. Hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. As always, please comment, share, ask a question. Don't be shy. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.